There was a recent case, I don't know if you saw this, I just read about it in the Free Press in Scotland, and a 74-year-old woman was arrested for standing outside a hospital where abortions are performed. She was holding a sign. She wasn't making any noise. She wasn't harassing anybody. She was just standing outside a hospital reading. The sign read, "Coercion is a crime, here to talk, only if you want." I think she was in some kind of, it was like a no protest zone. Yeah. There's some kind of law specifically around you're not allowed to protest outside abortion clinics. Right. What do you think about that? Is there something like that in Canada?
I think we do have something like that. Now, I'm not as familiar with it actually in Canada as, but I am familiar with the Scottish story. And it's not only the protesting and holding the sign, but even silent prayer in that bubble zone can get you in trouble with the police. And in fact, I was just actually week before last, I was in the UK and attended a number of free speech events. And I was at the art conference as well. And so this topic came up actually. And what I learned was that not only standing, well, so in some places there are actual private residences within the bubble zone. And they sent notices out to people who lived in those residences to caution them against praying in their homes.
Wow.
In a way that might offend the spirit of this bubble zone, right? So, I don't know who's monitoring your prayers now to determine whether they're entirely above board, but I mean, that's just insane. Somehow people have just jumped the shark here and have lost their minds. Maybe you ought not to be harassing somebody going into an abortion clinic, but standing there silently praying to your, in your head. Really.
Or just holding a sign. I mean, people can make their own decisions. I mean, what is it that I also understand if you're harassing somebody. Mm-hmm. But just holding a sign, I mean, what's the concern there that somebody might change their mind of their own free will or have a conversation and then they think differently? I don't know what the justification is for that kind of law.
Well, it's also very paternalistic, as most of these things are, because it sort of assumes that we can't hear other opinions and process them and be, right, critical thinkers, and that we need protection from, I don't know, hurty words. Like it's just, I don't know. It's very patronizing. Like, it took me a long time. Probably, I'm in my 50s, so probably until almost age 50 before I really felt like I was not sitting on the fence on a lot of issues, because I felt like I could always understand both sides. And and this is probably what's moved me into the free speech world, is in part because for me, it was always so important to hear all the arguments. It's like when I'm test driving a car, I got to try them all. I got to hear them all. I got to hear all the opinions before I can really kind of make a decision of where I land on something. And it's important to me to, and sometimes, you take some good things from both sides of an argument, but we've gotten to this point now where it's like, we're just being fed. Here's the truth. The government says, this is all you're allowed to know. Anything else is misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, and therefore you can't know it. And we're looking after you. It's okay. Let's pat you on the head and tell you this. It's just best. It's like Jacinda Ardern in COVID, or Jacinda, whatever her name is, telling everybody you don't need to look anywhere but to the government website for all the facts. Nothing else is factual. Just come to us. It's that kind of thing. It's ridiculous. And by the way, as you know, a lot of the information that the government's put out there was wrong. It was misinformation.
It was misinformation, yeah.
Or even malinformation or disinformation. I don't know. But there was a lot of stuff put out there that they were wrong about, and not just a little bit. Yeah. And so, the idea that they can be the arbiters of what's true and right and good and all you should know in the world, it's just insane. And it's just going to make us become simpletons, because we won't be able to spend that time hashing things out in our heads, figuring out where we stand on things, coming up with our own set of principles and our own guiding, worldview, because we're going to just be forced into whatever one the government tells us we're supposed to have. And so, we might not be serfs toiling on the land in the way we were hundreds of years ago, most of us, but we're going to be treated pretty much like intellectual serfs, right? Our lords are going to tell us what our thoughts can be, and that's just it. I don't. That's not the world I want to live in, by the way. That's kind of why I'm fighting this. I don't want my kids to live in that world. I don't want future grandkids to live in that world. And I think, honestly, if we don't fight like hell right now, we're at a turning point. That is the world we're going to live in.
Yeah, I think we're at a turning point right now too, and I think we have an opportunity to go in another direction, and I think we're really close to just continuing down the path we're on already into, yeah, a country where we don't have free speech, into potential authoritarianism, to, no more democracy in Canada, essentially.